Pop-Tarts protein. Why, oh, why? Why do we need this?
I don't think that Kellanova thinks anyone is going to consider this healthier than an apple or a bowl of oatmeal. This is about people choosing between options and going for the choice that has a little bit of something extra, a little bit of a nutritional boost. And what people are looking for these days increasingly is protein.
So what is this supposed to compete with? Like protein bars? So you're supposed to, eat this right after you go to the gym or right before?
I think it's more within the breakfast sphere. There's actually a bunch
Mm.
of different frozen waffles, frozen pancakes. Toaster pastries are in that kind of sweet frozen breakfast category. And they're seeing a lot of growth there from items that have higher protein. They even rebranded their Eggo waffles with higher protein this year to call them Eggo protein. So they're not messing around. What the people want and what they want to give them is protein.
I have to say, when I was pregnant, and Bloomberg used to be on Park Avenue, their old headquarters, and they used to have in the food court. We're famous for our food courts. I know everybody has food courts, but we did it early on. Frosted brown sugar, man. I used to have one. I'd come off air and I'd have a frosted brown sugar Pop-Tart. So there you go. What's interesting is, all right, so they're going to be infused with some protein, but they still have a lot of sugar, right?
The sugar content is pretty much the same between the standard Pop-Tarts and the higher protein version. So, yes.
What's going on? Because they're not alone, right? I mean, I will say I am someone who will, turn something around and look at how much protein is in something. But I mean, do we need to have tons of protein in everything, or should we get protein from normal sources of protein? I'm just curious, what's the medicine or science or behind this? Or does it really matter? Because people, shoppers just want things that say high protein.
Well, I think food companies are contending with shoppers turning away from highly processed foods and trying to buy more whole foods. And in some respects, this is a way to lure those shoppers back and to try and give them some of the nutrients that they are seeking, maybe in chicken breast or cottage cheese. This is a way for packaged food companies to try and get some of that better for you market that's really growing right now.
Why Pop-Tart out of all the brands of Kellanova? And you wrote in your piece, this follows PepsiCo's plan for a higher protein version of Doritos. So that looks kind of
I
different. So
know.
if you would think that they're competing with PepsiCo, not really, because Pop-Tart, it's so different from Doritos.
I keep on thinking we must be at peak protein, and people keep on saying that we're
Love
not.
that.
Yeah, I think Pop-Tarts are really beloved. They also, Kellanova has figured out some of the technology that works for them for adding protein to dough. That's the part of the Pop-Tart that will get the extra protein. So I think for them, technologically, they knew how to do it. They could get it to market pretty quickly, and they're really beloved. I think they sold 3 billion Pop-Tarts in 2023. So there's definitely an audience for this.
There used to be something called, was it something go rounds or something? It was another version, strawberry go rounds or something, that was like also made by the same people who made Pop-Tarts. Merry go rounds, I don't know, but it was basically like a loop of
Oh,
like
really?
dough with icing on it. They were like,
Like a pretzel.
yeah.
And this is going to be more expensive than the standard one, right?
Slightly. I think it's about 50 cents more expensive for a pack
Okay.
of 8.
Well, it's interesting too in the story you talk about what's gone on with their Eggo waffles, right? Those that were infused with protein, they have been selling and driving momentum in that space.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they introduced this higher protein version called Eggo Fully Loaded in 2024. And then last year or earlier this year, they renamed them Eggo Protein. And that's been a very successful product for them.
I got to say, when at home, if we're making waffles or we're not really into pancakes, but waffles or French toast, I actually throw in extra eggs in the batter, or I make sure like there's bacon or something. Like I do make sure that there's a protein, because you kind of get a lot of carbs and you get a carb high or a carb low, and you really
Yeah.
want protein with it. So I kind of get the mix that they're trying to do.
I put almond butter in my kids' oatmeal for the same reason. I don't want them to be hungry at 9:30 a.m.
And I think there's a market for this because the global market for foods fortified with protein is estimated to reach more than 100 billion by 2030. That's up from roughly 67 billion in 2023. So everyone's point, there's just really this huge desire or hunger for protein. But then whether we're peak protein, I'm not really sure. Actually, if you go into social media, the Gen Z now are saying out with protein and in with fiber.
Oh, that's interesting.
They are. There is a big fiber movement. I'm not sure that fiber is going to knock protein off the pedestal.
There's no fiber.
It's a big trend.
There isn't a fiber Pop-Tart coming our way.
Can you imagine? I always wonder, with the technology now, why can't they just make a superfood in a bar?
You know, I don't know. My parents were like everything in moderation.
Yes,
it was
same.
like fresh food. We had a little garden in the backyard, so we'd like pick tomatoes and cucumbers and lettuce, and it was just like, I don't know. It's gotten
life was
so
simpler back then.
complicated.
I don't think the older generation really counted all the nutritional value of food as much as today.
All right, but apparently, Kristina, protein's popping off the shelves, right?
It is.